he's actually not super traditionally Japanese in his writing. And this is perhaps why he's so popular internationally. Hello and welcome to the Asian American Forward podcast. Today we are talking about a book, which we haven't done in a while, but I think it's going to be actually really relevant given like where we both are, or at least you, Don. It made me think of you a lot as I was reading. Given like kind of the situations we find ourselves in our lives now. So we are today discussing Haruki Murakami's Killing Commendatore. This is his most recent, it's a few years old, but it's his most recent novel. And I feel like we should tell the story of like how we decided to do this book because it's kind of fun. But first, I will let you jump in and say hello to everyone who's listening. So good morning, Don. It's nice to see you.
Good morning, Katie. It's very fine. So we go back to the literature, and that's your major. And for me today, I just want to learn from you what's the you take from this book. But for me, I'm a Murakami's fan. I read most of his book, and every book I read, I'm so excited, and every time I can subtly feel the human touch on your heart. So but this time is the first time we talk about the Japanese author, and I want to listen more from you because I think you're more professional to analyze the author or novels, right?
Well, I don't know. I feel like literature is for everyone. So definitely like having a degree doesn't give me any kind of special privilege, but I have had a lot of practice interpreting literature. But I feel like the story of how we ended up picking this book is kind of fun. So I want to tell it now, which is that I came to visit you in your office. And because I'm an English major, I like immediately my eyes go to the bookshelf and I'm like, what books are on the bookshelf? And I noticed that you had 1Q84, which is his other like really big, long, even longer than this novel, which I loved when I read at some point, just for fun. But I think it was in high school or college. And I was like, "You like Murakami?" And you were like, "Of course. I've been wanting to read his new book. You can read it and tell me what it means." And I was like, "All right." Well, like I went to the bookstore like the next day or something and was like, okay, I better get going on this because it is like 700 pages. And I had a lot of fun reading it. I read like half of it on a vacation. So that was really nice. But I'm excited to talk about Murakami with you today. So I wanted to jump in by giving a little bit of context for who Murakami is as like a writer and kind of his bio and his background. So he's like Japan is very the novel as a form is very significant in Japan. It's just popular. Lots of people read novels, and novelists are sort of like rock stars in Japan. In fact, Murakami eventually became so famous and so renowned within Japan that he had to move to the US because it just wasn't comfortable for him to live there anymore. So he originally, though, didn't start out as a writer. He loved music and he wanted to be a musician, but he wasn't really successful at that. And then he opened up a jazz club. I think it was in Tokyo, but I can't remember where he lived. And he didn't start writing until midway through his life. He kind of decided to write a book on a whim. He was like, I'm going to try this and see if I can make it work. First part-time while running his jazz club. And then it went well. His first novel was received pretty well. So eventually he was like, I need to try being a writer seriously. And since then, he's become one of the most popular writers in Japan, but also across the world. He's hugely popular in English when he's translated. And he has since moved to the US. He, for a while, was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, so like near where I went to school as a professor. I'm not sure where he's living now, but
back to Japan.
He's moved back to Japan.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So does he like live out in the middle of nowhere, or does he live?
not nowhere. I think it's still in the metropolitan. I'm not sure it's back to the Tokyo, but he's living still in the metropolitan area, but it's
Ah.
a little bit of suburban area.
I see. Anyway, so one of the things that's like important just to know as Murakami as a writer, I think going into reading his work, which you can like stop me if you've heard so much about this, is that he's actually not super traditionally Japanese in his writing. And this is perhaps why he's so popular internationally. So I'm going to read a little blurb that I grabbed online. Murakami's fiction, often criticized by Japan's literary establishment as un-Japanese, was influenced by Western writers from Chandler to Vonnegut by way of Bragatin. It's frequently surrealistic and melancholic or fatalistic, marked by a Kafkaesque rendition of the recurrent themes of alienation and loneliness. Those are good things to keep in mind, alienation and loneliness. He weaves into his narratives. He's also considered an important figure in postmodern literature. Anyway, so he's also a huge fan of like modernist American writers. So like the early 20th century kind of greats that you all read in high school, Hemingway. He's actually translated Fitzgerald, Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby into Japanese from English. And so there are kind of the fingerprints of American culture all over his books. One of his more famous books, Norwegian Wood, is named after the Beatles song. So that's just kind of like various things to throw in. And I think particularly with the theme of isolation, I've heard that like Murakami's sort of focus on these very isolated, typically male characters who are kind of alone, kind of represents a break from the traditional Japanese sort of focus on family as like a building block for your story and for your characters. And so this book very much is a book about isolation. We have our main character it kind of takes place in a pause outside of his normal life, as he separates from his wife, who's asked for a divorce, and retreats to this countryside, kind of mountain estate. Estate is maybe a strong word, but he retreats to this house in the mountains. And so I found myself really relating to the narrator's kind of experience of isolation and all of these like long periods of time where he's just in the house and he's like, I read for a few hours, then I listened to some records, and then I got up and I made pasta, and then I read a little more, and then I painted for an hour, and then I like made a ham sandwich and some coffee. And Murakami is kind of famous for these like passages of just describing really, really ordinary things. And so I was wondering if you like found yourself like if you like me were reading the passages of the unnamed narrator kind of like alone in the house, if you were like, this is quarantine, or if you related to him at all, or if there's someone else you related to.
Number one is that I think it's when you're talking about related to my personal experience, that's totally get into the real life of my current situation. First of all, is that I'm living in the mountain view, the mountain. So you can see that my background is all the mountain around me. And every day, nobody can talk unless I want to go to go to the downtown to shopping. Otherwise, it's the entire mountain here is just totally nobody here. It's like 60 acres, no one here. And the second thing is, I think it's kind of related to myself. It's I do have a dream when I was like 13, 15, even go to the 18. I really want to be the artist, the painting. So it's that I try to draw the picture after every class from middle school to the high school. I go to the gallery and just do the painting every day, almost riding the bicycle and learn the painting. That's the way related to this book, because the author, the character here is the artist, the portrait painter. The third one is the real life experience. The separation is the similar situation, the mentality, how you go through the window. That's kind of related to my personal experience as well. So I feel it's very close to the the main character in this book. Everything is his thinking, his action, is that I can relate it to myself. That's part of the game. And the last thing is about the psychological similarities. When you're thinking about the process of your thinking and creativity, that kind of things, even related to the politics campaign. I just finished the mayoral campaign with Adrian back from New York City, from presidential to the New York mayoral campaign. It's all pretty noisy. Every day we have hundreds of people, and now it's back to the quiet mountain areas. I feel kind of a creativity coming out from loneliness, and that's the very challenging. Sometimes you like to be associated with a whole bunch of people drinking, smoking, golfing, or play around or party. But when you really at yourself, you can have some deep thinking. That's kind of things that I feel this book is set up the scenes so good, make people very quiet and calm down to reflect what's your life and the meaning of life. That's part of the opening from my side.
Yeah, and this character definitely uses his isolation to sort of process both the like separation from his wife, but we also are repetitively told about the loss of his sister when they were children. She was like, I can't remember what she was sick with, but she was sick. And so over and over, he's having these like weird experiences where I realized at some point, like probably about 100 pages, 100 or 150 pages into the book, that we had been told like the same story 3 times, and we're just repeating over and over again. And so even though the novel is it's a little long, I felt like the way that we like get these repetitions and have these sort of like moments where he's telling the same story again and again definitely like reflected the main character's state of mind and sort of the state of mind that you have in isolation. Another theme, though, that I really wanted to hit on, which I had no idea that you wanted to be a painter. That's super cool. Is that I want to talk about the role of art in the story. So the main character, the other thing besides the divorce with his wife and his kind of like loss of his sister during childhood that he's sort of struggling with, and ultimately like the meaning of life, I think is kind of a part of that, he's been a commercial portrait painter. And he decides he's going to quit his job because he wants to paint something that is his own artistic expression, something that's meaningful to him. And so, but it's not just painting that kind of plays a role in the novel. There's also like opera and jazz. There's kind of a side plot with another famous painter who is has dementia, and so the main character is staying in his house. And so I was wondering, the commendator says that like creation, it's not important to create something out of nothing, right? We're always drawing inspiration from another source. But what my friends need to do is discover the right thing from what is already there. So a lot throughout the kind of like scenes of the main character painting, he's sort of like discovering like what's already in his brain and bringing it out to paint it and make something creative out of it. So I'm wondering, like, how do you feel about that kind of perspective on creativity, that you're not creating something new, you're discovering kind of what's meant to always be, what's already in your mind or like existing in the world, but hasn't like come into a manifestation of itself yet?
That's pretty challenge and philosophical. It's a question or challenge to myself. I just recall during my stay in New York City, I bought the annual pass to the Metropolitan Museum.
My favorite place in the whole world. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's the New York City, the street is very noisy. It's a siren every second. It's just running across you, right? So but I try to at least 2 to 3 times each week. I can visit Metropolitan Museum. When you stay there, spend an hour or 2 hours, you can go through every art pieces there and calm down yourself and regain your energy back to the normal life. That kind of things give me the sense it's 100,000 years the human civilization, and a lot of things is existing there already. And our normal life today is either political or it's a career. The money really is not the most important thing. The important thing is you can find some humanity and the relationship built among us at the true touching of our soul. It's the Joe Biden has said his slogan is looking for the soul recovery, or it's the something like
Oh,
that. Yeah, yeah.
recovering the heart, the soul
Yeah,
of America, or
so
something like
America,
that.
so America. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's kind of things. And also, it's I recall the first time is that's back in 2018 when I first met Andrew and step into his tiny office in Metropolitan of New York on the 39th Street. There's only one slogan on the wall. It's called "Humanity First." So in my mind, I have no clue what the humanity first means to run president. But that's the slogan is to drive our entire campaign focus on the humanity. Of course, today I can realize and related to this novel, the humanity really is the kind of internal driving force of our life. So if you can observe or quietly be truthful to yourself, and you can find a lot of things around you, no matter it's the bird chirping around you or it's anything in your life, you can immediately relate it to the meaning of life and gain the energy to serve others, or it's find some ways to contribute to society. That's kind of things every day. So when I wake up, especially why I like Murakami is his description is so detailed, touch every detail in your life, and bring the everything is back to the calm is my mind, and then it's a meaning. It's when every year is his name on the Nobel Prize literature, the nomination.
Yeah.
Every year he missed, but it's when you read his bio, you see he's a so self-disciplined person. He get up at like 4 o'clock and running 10 miles and every day, and go back to his studio to study and writing for 3 to 5 hours, and then it's go back to the exercise, listen to the music. That's kind of a self-discipline for over like 50 years, all the way. And I really admire people with so self-discipline. And then he keep a shut off all the useless social gathering, just keep himself and make a 1 hour every day, just meet with people. Anyone is 1 hour, just limited 1 hour. He can talk with anyone. Those kind of a lifestyle is that really is respect, and also it's want to learn the meaning from his novel. I like him so much. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Me too. After I read this book, I listened to the audiobook of his sort of like memoir, what I talk about when I talk about running, which he talks a lot about his routine in that, and also kind of how
Yes.
he became a writer. And I felt so bad about myself. I was like, this guy is like, how, I don't know, I can't remember how old he is now, but like, he's got to be in his 50s or 60s, right?
No, he's 70 something. You should almost go to yeah.
Yeah, he's 70 something and he
Yeah.
has kept up this running habit. I was a runner in high school and I'm very much retired from running now because I was like, no more, my knees can't handle it. But yeah, he's crazy inspirational, both like in his writing and just in his life. I think you make a good point. There is one last kind of thing I wanted to reflect on a little bit. Which is like when I was reading his bio, and I think as you've noticed, especially if you've read and enjoyed 1Q84, which is his other really long novel, is that he has a lot of kind of sometimes it might be called magical realism or surreal, like elements of his novel. So in this book in particular, the main character is consistently visited by the manifestation of an idea, which is kind of a character that comes out of a painting. There is a side plot with a like mummified
Yeah, yeah,
Buddhist monk. And there's also some secret passageways involved, particularly towards the end of the novel. And so I was wondering if like spending time like in between these kind of like weird dips and gaps in reality, like how that experience was for you as a reader, and how that contributes to what you think Murakami is saying about the meaning of life. Because I think ultimately what I kind of took from this novel is that he's sort of pointing out that everything happens for a reason, but that you can't rush it, right? Like things are gonna happen when they're meant to happen. You'll discover the painting that's already there when you get in the right space, which for this character is being out in the mountains. And then at the end, he ultimately returns to his wife, right? They get back together
yeah.
and everything very much returns to normal, which kind of contributes to that weird sense of like this book kind of taking place outside of time. And so I'm wondering also if you've either had moments in your life where you felt like you were experiencing this kind of weird consciousness, or how you think that impacts kind of the vision of life that Murakami is putting forth in the story.
Yeah, there's the couple of things. The number one thing is the either I do not understand fully, or is now I disagree with his writings, the tactics or skill, or the content that put some the imaginary the character there is just says that he can talk to the some the ideas and those kind of things. For me, I think it's a little bit out of my floor of thinking. I want the people is either is real people, especially in the novel, the real people talking and living, instead of talk to some dream the character, those kind of unrealistic imagination and put into the novel. Those kind of things that I think is a little bit abrupt. It looks like
You
just a
didn't like
plug in.
it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's the things the difference between you and me. I
Interesting.
think yeah, I think it's the real novelist. If they have a creativity, they don't need to put this character to enhance his idea or the writing. That's the I feel it's the creativity for him in this book. It's kind of looking like it's a dry up of his real creativity and put this kind of a character there. Although it's a kind of a different style. Okay, so that's why I make a self disclaimer.
Yeah.
Either I don't understand, or it's the at least from my point of view, it's I like to read a novel. It's a real person. Even they have some description of their mental experience or dream or thinking psychologically. But if you put some character in the novel as a part of uh, the story, and it's like too superficial and too falsely put into the whole story. That's kind of things that he couldn't generate those ideas, but borrow some
I'm
outside
shocked.
character.
So many novels though are like built on like uh, what like having unexplainable instances. I mean, the kind of concept of magical realism is
Yeah,
super common, specific, especially in like Latin American writers, which I had a very big kick at
but
some point in
not
my life.
but not for him. Not for him.
1Q84 was so surreal.
Yeah, but at least for me, it's the kind of it's the my feeling that follow the story at this level, and whenever the character the idea character jump in, immediately drop to
You were
here.
like, I definitely didn't like that character at first.
Yeah,
But the more the book went on, I was like definitely having those like, oh, this is how it's meant to be feelings, which I think is what you're supposed to get out of it. Like I think part of like what the main character and Murakami is kind of wrestling with in this book
Yeah,
is the things that like can't be explained or really understood in any way that is complete. And so that's why you need the character of the idea within the story to kind of like be the manifestation of sort of the mystery of creativity and of life, right? That he's like going through these experiences that are very weird and coincidental, even in the character that we haven't talked about yet, which is the man whose portrait he paints, Menshiki,
yeah,
who has kind of his maybe daughter, and there's that whole kind of
yeah,
side plot as well. Even in that, right, the characters are dealing with like, how do we know that the life we're living is the life that we're meant to live? And we kind of just have to trust and keep going, right? When the character goes at the very end, when he enters the realm of the idea, he sort of is just has to walk forward through the cave. And I feel like that's such a great metaphor for like what humans experience in life and what Murakami is saying about life in general.
yeah. Philosophically, so I can feel, I can sense where the path he's going to go through, and I agree with the structure, mystery, everything there. But it looks like uh, the put the character and the dialogue there is too artificial. The step there,
It's all
and
artificial.
yeah, yeah,
It's
I
a
know,
book.
but yeah, but I wonder that some people like just like a water, the flowing very naturally to
Yeah.
go through your mind. This one is just like some through some stone in your heart or
Maybe
in
that's the
your mind.
point.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's why it's the I I told you it's I'm not fully understand this part. That's the only thing is for me to explain it. Yeah.
I know, I'm just arguing because I like to argue. But also, I heard a great quote from Toni Morrison this week. I'm teaching her novel Beloved, which
Uh,
I haven't read since I was like probably 18. So it's really fun to read again. And she said, like, she has very similar, like, jumping around in time and narratives. And
yeah.
she talks about wanting the reader to feel kidnapped by like the experience of reading the book because the characters were slaves. And so they could have had at any moment of their lives, like been sold or had someone they love be sold, or there's just like all of these ruptures. And so she wanted that experience to be mirrored in the narration. And so even though it's really difficult to read, I found myself appreciating it. And I think Murakami's probably doing something similar here, where you're definitely in the shoes of the narrator, experiencing everything with him and like being
Yeah,
like, there's an idea. What does that even mean? Why is
everything.
he
Yeah.
talking to me? How am I hearing this? Maybe I'm going crazy. So ultimately, I found that kind of a fun thing to read. Although I do have to say, it took me a couple hundred pages to warm up to this book. And then by the last 300, I was like reading it in one sitting. So I hope you enjoyed it.
I do
Um,
enjoy it. I do enjoy the book very much. No doubt about it.
do you have a favorite Murakami? I want to ask before we close up. Like, what's your favorite book of his, since you're a fan?
Yeah, I think there's the Norwegian Wood definitely the number one for me to favorites. I can go
This is
back
so interesting
again.
because
Yeah.
I can't even finish Norwegian Wood. I hate
Wow.
the main
Okay.
character. I can't stand him.
You may hate the character, but it's the for me there is so much I can have a sense of a feeling of the main character, and for back to this the particular book to kill the commanders. I think it's you just mentioned the Latin American the artist, the novelist. This one is a little bit mimic part of it, like 100 year solidarity.
100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel
Yeah,
Garcia
yeah,
Marquez.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the book. It's my favorite. Is the novel there. Even this, I never can figure out who's who, but I still enjoy reading that one. So this, I don't know. It's
I need
the
to read that book again. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. It's Murakami is the have something borrowed from there, but that book is from very beginning. There's the outside force, outside the characters start from very beginning. So it's I can use to it. But for the Murakami and in the Eastern the culture or the Asian culture, generally, so we don't borrow these kind of things into the novel. That's probably a little bit of shock to me.
Well, I'm glad that we had a little bit of disagreement today. That's fun. And maybe I'll try Norwegian Wood again. Also the way Murakami writes women, that's my one big gripe with
Oh, yeah,
him.
yeah.
But we will save that conversation for another day because we're probably about out of time here and I could literally go on forever.
Yeah.
So, Don, thank you for talking with me this week. It's always fun to have someone to discuss my reading with.
Thank you. It's interesting talking about the literature with you, especially for the Murakami's book. It's
I hope I live up
really
to your expectations of what an English major should be. But we'll close there because we're about out of time. So again, thanks, Don. My name is Katie Simpson. Our podcast is sponsored by Asian American Forward. You can visit our website at www.asianamericanforward.com. If you enjoyed the show this week or have a topic you'd like to hear us discuss on a future episode, you can send us your comments at info@asianamericanforward.com, or you can also just drop a comment beneath our YouTube videos. We would love to hear from you and get ideas from you. You can also find us on Facebook and hear more conversations between Don and I at our YouTube channel. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review in the Apple Podcast Store or tell someone about us. It really helps people find the show. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.